This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so for the recording purposes, and actually for all of you, because we haven't been introduced, my name is Kurt Nazer. I'm the Chief Product Officer, co-founder of Axiom Mentor. Just a little bit of background about myself. I'm a philosopher, a bioethicist, and back in 2001, I got into programming for some unknown reason and developed the IRB system that we're looking at. When we founded the company in 2009, we actually got real programmers, so I can't take credit for the programming, but I still manage the design and support implementation, etc. So, Laura, do you want to say anything for the recording before we get started with the demo?
I just thank you. Thank you for your, I guess the board, I know you all are aware that I've been in touch with Kurt and his colleague, Paul. We've started kind of having conversations in the fall. So this has been kind of a long time coming, and I appreciate your patience and your willingness to kind of work through a lot of different possible ways that we might be able to adopt Axiom Mentor at Saybrook. Thank you.
All right, well, I appreciate it. So first of all, for all of you on the webinar, feel free to interrupt me with questions. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you want. Since some of you are muted already, you may want to unmute your microphone before you ask questions, because otherwise I will ignore you because I won't hear you. So common problems to forget to unmute. And Laura, can you confirm that you're looking at my screen? I assume everybody is. Laura, I'm not hearing you, but it looks like you unmuted yourself. Can somebody just confirm that they're looking at my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
There we go. All right, good. I just wanted to make sure that's the case. All right. So Mentor is a modular system. We have a number of different pieces of the system. We're actually only seeing some of them here in this black menu bar. The way it looks when you're just using our IRB system would be something like this. Let's see if I have it. Oh, I guess I closed it. Sorry. I'll have to log back in because I'm going to show you. Anyway, these other items would disappear. Mentor also supports multiple IRBs. You can see I have two different IRBs defined here. I renamed this one Medical IRB for a demo that I did yesterday, didn't rename it back. But basically, there's no difference in the system itself, whether it handles social science or biomedical sort of stuff. So this is actually configured more along, well, somewhat on the lines of social science, although not entirely. For our IRB clients, if that's what they're using and they're not using other modules in Mentor, this is the landing page when they log in. We do integrate with single sign-on, so we should be able to do that with you folks, and so you'll be able to sign on through your, using your regular username and password at Saybrook and get into Mentor that way. This info page is something that the IRB designed, something Laura would probably set up. What you put here is entirely up to you. It's a blank page, basically. So normally you have some information about who to contact, information about the IRB, what its expectations are. You can see here I have links to some consent form templates. I have links to other documents here, and so forth. So you can put whatever information that you want. The documents that are linked here are actually on the documentation page. This is a resource page for primarily for your PIs, but also for the members. Caroline, could I ask you to mute yourself? Yeah, thank you. It was there was some background noise there, so. All right. So anyway, this is a resource page for your PIs and members. You can have folders here, any folders you want to create. You can limit access to them and so forth. This, for instance, is the consent form template. So you can see that what the info page is doing is just listing the contents of that folder here. That's why it has this gray bar. So you can be it's pretty flexible in terms of what you do. You can even embed like YouTube videos on here if you want. So. One thing, and Laura, you can confirm this for me. Do you use city training? I just don't recall from our previous conversations.
Yes, we do have a city.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
We have an integration with City so that we can download that data every night. So we have all of the completions data that would appear on this page, where you can see I have my own NIH certificates uploaded. We would, obviously not show the IACUC and IBC, et cetera. But the nice thing about what appears on this page, including the City training, is it appears on every protocol that you're associated with. So hopefully most of your PIs won't have to upload any certification here. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through the protocol submission process. I'm going to do that as a student. Students, I believe in your case, as in most IRBs, require faculty advisor sign off, and Mentor has a workflow for that. So I'm going to walk through that process. So I'm going to log in here as Angelica and go to the IRB. And so this is what it looks like to a PI. They just see the IRB tab. And I'm going to go to her My Protocols. She's my favorite go-to demo student, so she's got a lot of protocols. I actually created one this morning. Not sure if you wanted to see the protocol submission process, but so I had some things set up there, but we'll go through the submission process. So Mentor does have the capacity to do what we call a pre-protocol survey. Laura, do you recall if this is something that you would want to look at? It takes a few minutes to walk through. It's designed to help the PI figure out whether they're exempt, whether they're expedited, and so forth. Is that something you want me to walk through?
I think it wouldn't hurt, because since we do have mostly student researchers, anything that we can do to help educate them about research and the process is helpful.
All right. So what this survey is going to do, it's a branching logic survey, and if you read the questions, you'll recognize this question because it's one that we all struggle with. So I'm asking, and you can modify this survey. It's up to you to use it and how you want to change it and so forth. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm doing research, and I'm involving living individuals, because that's what's part of the definition of human subjects. And I'm going to poke or prod them in some way, right? Do some sort of intervention with them. And I'm going to collect private information. And then we get a question about prisoners, which is essential for determining exemption. So I'm going to say, no, I'm not doing prisoners. And then we get the list of exemption categories. This demo instance set up with the new regulations. So these are the exemption categories under the new regulations. I'm just going to pick, for instance, educational tests and surveys, interviews. That's fairly common for student type of research. And what the branching logic is going to cause me to terminate here after a couple more questions at exempt. And so we won't see the questions that go on for the other exemption categories or for expedited or full. I'll save that. So this is an important question, determining whether something is exempt. If it involves children. Some things can be exempt with children, other things cannot. So I'm going to say no in the interest of simplicity. You know something? I didn't. Looks like I'm doing behavioral. So I'm going to say yes. I'll say yes to this. I may have made a mistake there. It looks like I went to the wrong. Sorry, it's not survey research. It's benign behavioral interventions that I clicked on. I just wasn't paying close enough attention. So decision making, yeah, we're going to say they have the capacity to make decisions, and they're going to agree to in advance. I normally like to do this demo with survey because it's more familiar to everybody. I don't know how familiar you are with benign behavioral interventions. I'm not going to do study does not involve deception, and is pros limited to yes, we're going to do that. And I'm not that familiar with the questions here for benign behavioral intervention. So at this point, Mentor's figured out that I'm a candidate for benign behavioral interventions, exemption number 3. So I can end the survey or I can proceed to protocol submission. So I'm going to proceed. And the next thing that Mentor is going to ask me to do, because I'm a student, is name my faculty advisor. If you call them faculty supervisor, whatever term you want to use, there's lots of labels in Mentor that you can customize. So I am going to name myself as the advisor here. And then Mentor is going to take me to the protocol submission form. So if I hadn't done the survey, I would have just been prompted to name the faculty advisor and get to this form. The first thing I'm going to show you is down here, Mentor's already selected exemption and exemption number 3. That's an outcome of the survey. So if I had correctly, like I thought I was going to do test surveys, interviews, exemption number 2, I would have ended up there. So that that's an important part of that pre-protocol diagnostic survey. It actually pre-selects for them. Now they could change it if for some reason they just answered the question wrong, and like I did, they could change it to tests and surveys, and so it's not written in stone. I want to go back up here to cover some of the items here. Co-PIs, as long as individuals have a user account in Mentor, and we should be getting the full list of faculty and staff and students into Mentor so that even student PIs can name other students to be on their protocols. You just type in the first letters of the last name, you select, and you can add, and you can add as many co-PIs as you want to. Nice thing about this is we'll know what their training certification status is once we get to the admin side. Co-PIs, you can allow them to grant edit rights to any of their co-PIs. So if you want to grant that, allow them to do that, you can do so. If there are co-PIs or other study personnel who don't have user accounts in Mentor, which would typically be those individuals outside of Saybrook, then you can just type in the names. If you require training certification for other study personnel, then the PI would have to upload it to the protocol because obviously we don't have access to their data. Research associates, again, you can label these as you will. Others, persons working on a study, like if you're a faculty member, you work in a lab, maybe a psychology lab, you might have, several students working on different protocols, and you can simply name them by just typing in the first letters of the last name and select, and you can add as many of those as you want to as well. All right, so this is going to be my new Saybrook IRB protocol. Titles can be as long as you want. This field will hold whatever they throw at it. I've seen long paragraphs as titles before. Usually that's clinical trials, but all right. The items that you're seeing on the screen now, these are all optional items. They're built into, well, some of these are built into Mentor, others are created by the client, but they're optional. Because I just did a demo involving a biomedical IRB, I have things here that really pertain to biomedical IRBs, particularly the IND and IDE numbers. So these are all optional from here down. The grant and funding source are also optional. You may want to collect that information. That's all configuration stuff. The start date and end date are also optional fields. I like collecting a start date because sometimes PIs will put in like 3 months ago, and that's the time for a conversation with them about proper procedures and getting pre-review, not post-review of their human subjects research. These two menus are client-defined menus. So you can create any menus that you want to add to this page. They can be multiple select or a single select. These happen to be 2 single select menus. This was me just doing a demo and showing somebody how to create menus. If there's multiple select menus, they'd have check boxes, so you can check multiple items. But one of the functions of these menus, and actually any other menus that are on the system, including the exemption categories or the review types or waiver of consent, etc., is that they can be used as conditions for showing other forms. I'm going to show you an example of that on this protocol in a minute. I'm actually going to, so one thing I want to show you, I've selected tests and surveys here. Down below, you can see that there is a set of questions that are keyed to tests and surveys. These are optional. You don't have to use them. you can create your own set of questions for each exemption category, another set for expedited, another set for full board. So it allows you to customize this initial submission form. If I go back to benign behavioral interventions, you'll see down here that it's now got a different set of questions. And some of these actually repeat the questions that are in the pre-protocol survey. So, whether you're using that pre-protocol survey or not may determine what you want to actually use here. I'm going to submit this as expedited review, and you'll see, in addition to the expedited review categories, there are also separate set of questions here for expedited review. This is a set of questions that a hospital IRB iServ-On uses, so I just borrowed them and threw them in here. But again, you can define any kinds of questions, and they can be long text, short text, any sort of standard type of question that you want. So let's go back up here. So this is going to be submitted as expedited review, waiver of informed consent. I'm going to request waiver. There is a form that is linked to that we will see after we create the initial protocol record. Regulatory agency, if everything you do is under the common rule, we don't need to use this agency menu. If you're doing things that might be under DOE or DOD or FDA, then it's appropriate to know what the appropriate regulatory agency is. So, vulnerable subjects, this is a menu that you customize. So if you don't do prisoner research, we don't have to show it. If you don't do, pregnant women or fetuses, etc., and you can add to it. So you can have whatever populations you believe are vulnerable. You can also link additional forms to any one of these items that they select. So I'm going to say we're doing 50 subjects. Keywords, this is optional. You don't have to ask for them. Keywords, titles, and the contents of machine readable files are all indexed by the server. And so there's a full text search engine that is available to the IRB members and administrators. So, if you're looking for, you can't remember the PI, you can't remember exactly what the title was or IRB number was, you can, put in a search term and you can hopefully find your protocol that way. This is an abstract field. These are just the sort of description of what the PI should put in. This is an optional field. This has a very peculiar characteristic. The contents of the abstract field show up directly on the meeting agenda. If you don't want the abstract to show up on the meeting agenda, then you can ask this as a supplemental question, either, for instance, in a set of questions down here on other forms that you would create. So it's just a very particular field. I'm going to upload a consent form here. You can see there's only allowed 2 files at this point. As you know, protocols can have many files. I'll show you how additional files are added. We limit the number of files that can be uploaded on the initial submission form just to make sure they're not uploading like a gigabyte video or something. And if they don't have the bandwidth, the upload could time out and it fails to get the protocol recorded. So we limit the number of files. So I'm just going to upload that file and save, and Mentor should refresh. And this is the view protocol page. So you can see the first thing you see are these red warnings, and the button to submit to the faculty advisor isn't grayed out. It can't be clicked because they have to do the required items. So you can do a fair amount of validation in terms of making sure that they have filled out all of the right things before they can submit either to the IRB or to their faculty advisor. First thing to notice is the missing signatures. Mentor can handle electronic signatures from all study personnel. I don't know whether that's really necessary in your case. I like to limit the number of signatures because it just slows down completion of the protocol. In this case, the PI is submitting the protocol, so that's effectively an electronic signature. But if you want to have an electronic signature, you can, and only that user can sign electronically. And since I'm logged in as that user, I can sign on her behalf. There's actually in this instance, there is a password challenge. And I think that's her password. I have to see. There's also, this is text that you can put in. This is kind of affidavit text, so you can decide what you want them to, as it were, promise that they're doing when they sign electronically. Looks like I got the password right for her. And that is a Part 11 compliance signature. That's really all an electronic signature is an authenticated timestamp. So that required item is done now. Before I get to these other items, I'm going to just talk a little bit about the protocol itself. You can see all the data that I put in. There's missing data here. You don't have to show all the missing fields if you don't want to. And then there is this supplemental form, and then there are the files. So I'll work with the files first and go over this. As you know, consent forms in particular, but also protocols need to be revised with some regularity. So when a PI revises a file, they can just use upload docs or just upload, from the file type and upload an additional form. I'll just do an additional file so you can see how Mentor handles these. I'm just doing my test doc, and you can see that they're just listed here, and they're actually listed in the order they're uploaded. So even though it's not showing the timestamp. If I need to revise a file, so I've been asked by the reviewer, by the administrator, whomever, to make changes. If I use replace, then I can go and get yet another consent document, and we'll just call this consent.docx. And you'll see that the new file now replaces the old file. If I go to versions, the original file is there, the new file is there. This is called file version control. This way you don't clutter up the protocol with a lot of files that were just revised and don't need to be seen directly, but they remain in the system and accessible. You can download them, you can roll back to them. And so that way you have an audit trail of the changes that things went through, but it doesn't need to clutter up the protocol. If you want, you can upload to additional file types. You can add to this list and change a couple of these. Some of these are system-defined file types because they're functions that are associated with them. But if there are other file types you want to add, you can add whatever file types you want. And if the PI wants to, or the administrator wants to upload multiple files at a time, as long as those files are all in the same folder, I'll just upload a couple of these. And Mentor will upload them. You have to assign a file type to them. So I'll say, okay, that's a protocol description. This is an additional documentation, and we'll call this, I don't know. Don't we have recruitment materials? Yeah, there we go. And so now those files are all uploaded, and you can see how they're handled here. So the file types really help organize the files and tell you what they are, because sometimes the file name itself doesn't give you a lot of information. Any questions on handling files? Please remember to unmute yourself if you do have a question.
Would you back up just a second to the kind of the warning that you got that said that I don't know if it's at the top of this page or previous. Yes. Right. So will that take the student to the place that either has an explanation or to the place that needs to be completed or filled in correctly?
Yeah, that's not a link because some of these warnings have multiple objects in them, but this takes you, so this is telling application forms, right? We're missing something. Here's the application forms, which is what I'm going to go to next.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, well, you can always break in and interrupt me, so feel free to anytime. So we've covered files. The application forms these are a set of forms that are entirely client defined. So out of the box, as it were, the virtual box, there are no forms here. I can certainly help you with, if you want to look at other clients' forms, some of them have agreed to share their forms. I can certainly get them to you and import them into Mentor for you. But these are, typically you would define what these are. We have IRBs that do their entire application online, so the entire protocol itself is done in Mentor forms. We have some IRBs that do some file uploads and some, Mentor forms, and other IRBs that just deal with just file uploads. The consent form is going to be a file upload in any event, but the meat and potatoes of the application, the protocol itself, can be done online. It's up to you. So this is just a conflict of interest form that I threw in here just to have a form here. You can see a bunch of yes/no questions, some text questions. There's me doing a demo for somebody on how to add questions. So, this is a protocol outline. This is actually a protocol outline used by Bridgeport Hospital, where I've been on their IRB for 20 plus years. This should look fairly familiar. What's the purpose of your study? What's the background information, hypotheses to be tested? Who are your subjects? What are your inclusion and exclusion criteria, recruitment methods, all of that stuff, right? So you can, and these are all full text, long answer questions. You can see here, I've just created a file upload. You can do file uploads on these forms as well. So there's 2 questions it says that are required. They're highlighted with the red asterisk. And so I need to answer those 2 questions before I can submit this protocol. So I'm going to go here. First of all, you'll notice that there are 3 questions in the form. That's something you set up when you're setting the forms up, is what questions are sort of put together into a form. This question, purpose of study, has a suggested word count limit. As I type, you'll see in the lower right-hand corner that it's counting the words as I type. You can enforce a limit if you want. I'm not sure in this context of an application you want to enforce a limit, but obviously you don't want them, if these are like, dissertation students, doctoral students, you don't want them dumping in their entire, proposal, right? So maybe a word count limit is appropriate. These fields will actually hold quite a lot of text, up to 1 million characters, which is an enormous amount of text. And they have all the regular formatting things that you would expect. I'm going to just put something in here in the interest of time. I don't know if you saw that flash by, but it just said auto save. It does an auto save, I think, every 15 or 30 seconds. And so if power goes out, or you just get up and leave and the system logs you out, you can recover that data. So I will save these answers. Mentor will then just go through to the next question in the form. You can see here I've got auto save text already on this question. So I'm going to cancel out in the interest of time. And you can go back, you can edit your answers, so you don't have to answer everything completely. You can do some answers, save it, come back, change them, and so forth. So I'm going to edit my answer here, and obviously this is not a good purpose of study, so my purpose is to demo the software, right? And you can see it's automatically in track changes. It deleted, it shows this is deleted, what's inserted. And so as I keep typing, it keeps showing it up in track changes. At this point, the PI, if they're just submitting their protocol, they can just approve the changes. But when they're asked to do revisions by you, this allows you to see what those changes are. And then when the protocol is approved, Mentor automatically accepts all the changes and all of the answers. So I will again save this. It again is going to scroll to the next question. I'll cancel out of that. You can do branching logic in these forms. So if you have multiple choice questions, you can use them to do branching logic. You'll also see here now that I edited my answer that this says versions. If I click that, it will show me the original version and the new version. Every time the answer is changed, it writes a new version. The other question, the second question, I didn't change it, so it didn't write a new version. But this way you have an audit trail of the changes, again, that were made, the same way you do with the files. This reader comments link, this is primarily designed for reviewers, the administrators, members of the IRB reading the protocol who want to write comments on it. I have it enabled on this demo instance for the PI to be able to write comments. And there may be some use case for that. I would normally not let them write comments until they've answered a question, because I don't want them to think that this is where they're going to put their answer. But they may, it's legitimate, they may, if you write a comment, they may say like, what am I supposed to do with this? Or, I don't understand what I am supposed to do. Right, so whatever it is, whatever that comment is. So it is possible to allow the respondent, the PI, to write comments, and then you can just mouse over it, and you can see automatically it's displayed to other readers. In this case, that's by design because it's the PI. We'll come back and do a comment as a reviewer. We'll see how that looks. It's pretty much the same thing. One other thing I want to show you about the forms, you'll see there's a form here for waiver modification of informed consent. This is here because I requested waiver of modification of informed consent on the protocol. So this form has a condition set, so it only appears when the condition is met. You can get pretty involved with that in terms, and what it allows you to do is only ask the PI questions that are relevant to their protocol. So, you can have your own set of questions for exempt protocols rather than doing them on the initial application form. You could do the same thing here. And if it's exemption number 1 for educational research, you have a set of questions, but they don't have to see all the questions for surveys, et cetera, et cetera. So the questions here should look pretty straightforward for waiver of informed consent. I didn't make any of these required in the interest of time, so I don't have to answer them. Any questions on these forms?
It sounds like the initial work up front is going to be developing the protocols to whatever we can imagine might happen, and once that's set, they should be kind of self-driving from there. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Normally in setup, what we do is, I assume Laura is the prime mover here, and so we would work with Laura. We actually would analyze your application form as it is now, work with you on what items are already on the create protocol form, what items would be best served in these forms, what items might be that supplemental forms that you saw for the exemption or expedited review. And so forth. So there is some setup work setting up these forms. On the other hand, if you want to just continue to use your application template that you have, I don't know what that is, you can do it by file uploads, and you don't have to worry about these forms at all. It's really up to you how you want to handle that.
Another question, if I have 8 students who are in process at some point or other, can I come in and type in my name as the sponsor and have those pop up so that I can see who's in the system?
Yes, I will show you how as a faculty advisor, sponsor, whatever you call them, can access those protocols that they're named on.
Okay.
So in fact, so any other questions on the forms? All right, well, hearing none, I'm going to go back to the protocol, and you can see now that I can submit the protocol to the faculty advisor. So up until now, the faculty advisor doesn't know the protocol is here. I actually am not sure if the faculty advisor can see this protocol on their view of Mentor. I actually haven't tested that. But once it's submitted to the faculty advisor, obviously they're going to get an email saying, hey, you've been named as faculty advisor, and I will show you how then the faculty advisor accesses the protocol. So I'm going to submit this. There's a confirmation, and bingo, it's submitted, and now we wait upon the faculty advisor. Mentor just sent me an email because I'm the faculty advisor, and as soon as my email loads here, it takes a second for my email to load up. Come on, you can do it. There we go. All right, so this is the email that the faculty advisor receives. This is one of many templates in Mentor. You would customize these templates with your own language. Obviously you put your logo in here, et cetera, contact information, whatever you want. This particular one is configured with a link. If I click that link, my email makes me do a confirmation. It opens up the protocol. The faculty advisor does not have to log in to Mentor. We want to make it as easy as possible for the faculty advisor to get to the protocol, we'll look it over, and approve it or request revisions, whatever's going to happen. Now, at the same time, you can access the protocol in Mentor. So if I go back here, am I still in here as Angelica? Yes. If I exit the account and I go back here, I'm just going to refresh this page. And I go to my student protocols, you can see here is my Angelica protocol that I just created as Angelica. So you can access the protocol from within Mentor. Mentor is giving me some things here that it doesn't normally give a faculty advisor because I'm system administrator. So the research coordinators, I think the faculty advisor can edit the protocol within Mentor. I think on the external view, we don't let the faculty advisor edit it. So they can view it, they have a read-only view. The faculty advisor can download any of the files and so forth. And they can then also go to the application forms. They can write comments in here. So, answer question, right? And I'll save that. And so you'll see how Mentor just handle those comments. They're just pretty straightforward. It automatically knows who you are. So, and the faculty advisor can then, on the faculty advisor action page, this is, first of all, text that you would stipulate. This is what the faculty advisor is agreeing to. This is important because basically your faculty advisor is responsible for the protection of human subjects. At least that should be your policy. If it's not, you might want to reconsider your policy. But you want to, tell the faculty advisor, this is what you're agreeing to and what you're signing up for. The faculty advisor can request revisions back to the, formally request revisions back to the PI. They can also just contact the PI, the student, and say, hey, before I accept this, you need to change X, Y, or Z. So in the interest of time, I'm going to accept this. If they reject it, then you're going to get an email saying that the advisor rejected it. There may be, it's rare, but it happens on occasion. Maybe they picked the wrong advisor. Maybe the advisor just doesn't have time. I don't know. So, all right. So when I accept it, I update the status, and the protocol has been formally submitted to the IRB. You can see here, Mentor already added an administrator. This is entirely optional. You don't need to use it. Depends on how many staff are working. But Mentor automatically did that. It also sent an email, actually several emails out, notifying individuals on the IRB that there is a new protocol submitted. Who receives those notifications is entirely up to the administrators and the members of who's going to receive what notifications. One other thing I want to point out is in this email, this link. This is only valid for 4 weeks. It expires after 4 weeks. That is a security measure. We don't want to leave in people's email a link that would allow anybody who hacks your email to get in and see that protocol. So that's why it expires after 4 weeks. 4 weeks should be plenty of time for them, and they can also at any time go in and find the protocols that associated with any student on the students protocol page, student protocols page. In fact, they're all, you can see that one just disappeared because I accepted it. But if you look at all statuses, you'll see all the protocols that you've had, student protocols you've been assigned to. So they're all archived here. Any questions on that workflow with the faculty advisors? All right, hearing none, and again, feel free to jump in and just interrupt me. We're going to go now to the admin side, look at it from the point of view of the administrator, and most importantly for you folks, the reviewers. So if you are a member of the IRB, you have the IRB admin tab. You have access to all of the pages here. You have read-only access to the protocols. You cannot make changes unless you're assigned as an administrator. Anybody can be assigned as an administrator on the IRB, and then they can make changes to protocols. Normally, members don't need to even go to this page very much, because either you're going to be assigned as a reviewer and you're going to get an email with a link, or you're going to go to the meeting agenda so that you can prepare for the meeting that's coming up in the next hour, right? I know some of you might actually, prepare earlier than an hour before the meeting, but but you do have the ability to go in, and obviously to assign a reviewer here, I need to do the administrative function. So I'm going to go in, and this is how the protocol looks to administrator. Again, all the buttons, if you're a member, all the buttons go away. So you don't have to, because you're not allowed to make changes to the protocol. I will change this when and we actually manage a couple of IRBs, clients IRBs. When I go in and as administrator and look at a protocol, the first thing I do is change the tracking status. This is a menu that you define. It keeps track of how long it's in each of the stages of review. So I will periodically change that as we go through the process here. As administrator, whoops, I just changed it because I had it enabled, sorry. As administrator, you're going to look at the protocol, you're going to look at the forms. It's going to look the same way as it does to the PI and the faculty advisor and so forth, except I can request revisions, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And I can download the files. As administrator, you can upload files. You can make changes to anything. There is nothing written in stone on the protocol. You can change the faculty advisor. You can even change the PI. So, while it may be the intellectual property of the student PI or the faculty PI, we take the view that it's really the IRB's protocol in terms of the practical matters of being able to make changes. So, let's say the protocol is reasonably okay. I don't need to ask the PI to do any changes before I assign it to a reviewer. So I'm going to assign this to a reviewer. And this is where we're going to get into the kind of stuff that most of you are going to be interacting with. This, of course, assigning a reviewer is an administrator function. So you wouldn't assign yourself as a reviewer per se, but you will get the email when you are assigned. So I am going to assign myself to this protocol, no conflict of interest there. Mentor supports different reviewer roles. Different reviewer roles have two different functions, I'm sorry. One is they're used in automatic reviewer assignment. So Mentor can assign reviewers automatically on submit of the protocol. Also, the different reviewer roles can have different reviewer checklists. So I'm going to show you an example of that here. When I selected primary reviewer, it put in a due date, a reminder notice date, and a frequency of reminder notice date. That's all automatic. Those are characteristics of the reviewer role that you would set up beforehand. I'm going to say that this is with reviewers as the new status when I submit this, and that can actually be done automatically. There's some triggers that you can use for changing the tracking status. This is a table of reviewers. Now, this is a demo instance, so I end up assigning myself all the time. I've assigned Michael in the past. But this gives you a reviewer load report. So it tells you how many of each review level protocols that the reviewer has been assigned, and calculates a load score based on weightings that you set. And that just helps the administrator decide who to assign to a protocol. Now, you may assign members based on areas of expertise, but even within that, you may want to know who, if you've got 2 psychology folks, then you may want to know who's got the lower load score. All right, so I'm going to add myself as a reviewer, and that triggers an email automatically. You can edit the notification before it goes out. I didn't do that in this case. I'll show you the email notification that I just got. And it takes a second for my email to load the text. I don't know why it's always so slow, but it is. Again, this is another template that you would customize. You can see it actually has 2 links. This is a link to access the protocol directly, and this is a link to decline the assignment. You don't have to allow your reviewers the opportunity to decline the assignment. That's up to the chair and the administrator. So Laura, be nice to Laura. Maybe she'll let you decline the reviewer assignment. So I probably shouldn't have told you all that, because now you'll know that it's there if you want. Why can't we decline it? So again, the link opens up the protocol without logging in. We want to make it easy for you folks to access the protocol. You can still access the protocol. You can still access the protocol from within Mentor. Sorry for the phone there in the background. You can ignore it. I am. If I go to reviewer page, and I'll sort this in descending order, that's the protocol I'm assigned to. So it's here in Mentor. You can always access it, but sometimes it's easier just to click on a link and look at the protocol from here. So as reviewer, you have access to all of the files. You have access to the application forms. You can go in, you can write comments on any of the questions that you want. So now this is going to be kind of duplicative, just some comment like Kurt. Since I'm the same person, it's not distinguishing me as reviewer. It's just going to have 2 comments. Now you'll notice, and this is interesting, Mentor is not showing the name of the 2 comments that I did, and that's a setup characteristic, a setup parameter. You can hide the names of the people who are commenting from both the student PI and from the faculty advisor. I think what Mentor is doing is it's hiding the names, even though it's my name, because I'm the faculty advisor. So it's not showing the names in this context. So you can imagine here we've got several different roles going here. We've got admin, we've got faculty advisor, we've got reviewer. So Mentor is sorting out those roles and saying, I'm not going to show you the name, but it should, and certainly on the admin side, it will show the names.
Kurt, this is Laura. I think I remember talking about this with you or Paul. Part of the functionality there for the board members is so that the researcher is receiving a set of reviewer comments from the board and not necessarily associating individual comments to individual members, so that they wouldn't necessarily reach out to a particular member of the board, right? I mean, there's a reason for hiding that.
Yeah, and in fact, in that case, then the comments themselves won't even show up from the reviewers or the members of the board. So there are parameters that you set that allow the comments to either be seen by the PI or seen by other members, and identified to the PI or identified to other members. So and so that all can be controlled by the administrator. So if your practice is that the reviewers make comments and then Laura digests those comments and puts them into a coherent package for the PI, then the comments won't necessarily be visible directly to the PI. They'll get them in the letter, or they'll be here visible, but Laura will have enabled some of them and disabled others, because you're commenting. If you know that the PI isn't going to see your comment, you may be a little bit more direct and less polite than you would be if you knew that the PI was going to see exactly what you wrote. So so those are all things that we need to discuss in the setup and make sure that we've set up the reviewer roles and the comments so that it's behaving the way that you want it to. So good point, Laura. All right, so I'm going to go back to the protocol page. There is a review page, so I've looked at all the stuff, and I'm ready to I may have commented on the individual questions on the forums. So that's one way that reviewers can provide feedback, is commenting on the forums, the supplemental forums. Another way to comment or to provide feedback is just general comments. There's a field here, and you can just write in whatever, right? And this can hold as much text as you want, and maybe that's all you need to do is just, and that's preferable for you to do that. So that's a second way to provide feedback. A third way is if you create a reviewer checklist. I don't know if you guys have a reviewer checklist or a reviewer survey. They're relatively easy to create. They get linked to the reviewer role. I'm going to answer, this literally is a checklist. There are a couple multiple choice questions. There is a full text question. I'm not going to answer everything just because it's interest of time, but you can ask any sorts of questions you want of the reviewer. And so that's a third way to provide feedback. A fourth way to provide feedback is upload revisions. So let's say, the consent form is going to be typically a Word document. So let's say you looked at it, and rather than writing out, page 2, paragraph 3, the fourth sentence, blah, 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 right? I mean, that gets tedious. You can just download the consent form, put it in track changes, and type in your comments. Or you can even help rewrite it for them. I've done that on occasion. And so I'm going to just upload a file here. Do we have a summary of changes form? Do we have a track change? Here's a consent form, track changes. Doesn't really matter. And you can see this has a very specific file type, reviewer consent form revisions. So it's clearly marked. If we go back and look at the protocol, you'll see that it's clearly marked as reviewer consent form revisions. Depending on how the reviewer role is, set up, this file may not even be visible to the PI, and it would be up to Laura to make it visible and not show who submitted it. So all of those things are, again, permission settings. When the reviewer is done, if you can set it to pending revisions required, that opens up an email that would probably, in your case, go back to the administrator, to Laura. In the interest of time, I'm just going to complete it. That also triggers an automatic email telling whoever on the IRB wants to know that the review assignment has been completed. And so I just got that email. So if we look at the protocol, sorry, this is the wrong instance. What I want here, I guess I want to be here. So let's go to IRB admin, and here's our protocol. And you can see down here that the primary reviewer is me, and that it's been completed. It's assigned, on that date time. It was completed on such and such a date time. This is just the due date that appears here. If I want to see what the reviewer had to say, click here. There's the file they uploaded, any general comments, what they said in this part of the protocol. Any questions about reviewers, the reviewer function? I didn't point this out, but you can assign multiple individuals as reviewers, either in the same role or a different role. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice here. I was on an, excuse me, an hour call before we started, so I've been talking too much. So if the reviewer system looks okay to you, no questions, then I'm going to request revisions, because this is the real work. So Laura's going to look at your comments as reviewers. She may copy them. The comments that are actually on the application forms can be automatically copied into a revisions required email. I'm going to show you that. So Laura has the ability to request revisions. and the administrator can write comments in here as well. So I'm just going to say that revisions are requested on that question. I'm going to request it here, even though there aren't any comments, just to show you. You can see here it's flagging it as two questions have revisions required. This is a little workflow thing that sort of streamlines the requesting revisions process. When I check this box, it's going to open up an email form to the PI. It's including the faculty advisor. And this is, again, another template that you would create. And you'll notice that in this template, it's including the questions that are revisions required. So this is the question. This is the section, the form. This is the question, the PI that wrote the answer. And then there are the comments here. And you'll see it's not showing Angelica's comments. It is showing my comments. If you don't want to show the comments or the name, you can just delete it. So you can just backspace over and delete the name and show the comments, or you don't have to include this variable at all. You can see here's the second question, didn't have any comments on it. So, but this gives the PI, some idea of what the comments were from the reviewers if you want to share them that way. It's easy enough to delete these, or you can just not use this function and let them find what's on the form itself. So I'm going to send this out, and that gets written as PDF on the protocol. So that would be under notifications, revisions required. So you have an audit trail of what you requested. You can obviously type into that email and put other stipulations in there, which I didn't do in this case. But that is part of the audit trail of the protocol. Protocol is now in a state of revisions required. If we look back here, you'll see it says revisions required here. If I log in as the PI, you'll see that it's highlighted in yellow. So it's like, hey, this needs attention. Revisions required. She goes into the protocol. This is how she's going to submit her revisions. Hopefully she does the revisions first, but we want to make it real clear to them. This is how you're going to submit your revisions. So she can go in and to the application forms and see any comments that you have made available, and edit her answer, make her changes, upload changes to the consent form, anything else that she needs to do. And when she's ready, she checks the submit revisions box. That sends an email back to the administrator saying revisions have been submitted. And now on her view, it says revisions submitted. And on the admin view, if we refresh the list of protocols, it's highlighted in yellow because now it's, hey, administrator, pay attention to this protocol. Revisions are submitted. We go in, we uncheck the box, and now we're back at the starting point. You look at the revisions, and if they didn't do everything you wanted them to, you just do the same process again until they get it right.
This is Laura. Oh, I didn't let you ask if there are any questions. I was just going to ask the question. Is there a way to build in the workflow there so that the revisions go to the faculty advisor for sign off before coming to the IRB? Could that be built in at that stage?
We don't have that presently. You can certainly protocol messages. You can always send a message to the advisor. I didn't recall if the revisions required. I don't recall if that email CC'd the advisor automatically. Okay. I think it does. Let's actually just test it out. Yeah, it automatically CCs the advisor. Okay. There is a setting so that the advisor gets copies of all notifications, so they could get a copy of the revision submitted notification, but it doesn't go back through a formal sign off process again. When you're requesting revisions. I think that might get a bit tedious for the faculty advisors. So.
Thanks for clarifying.
All right. Any other questions on that process? I'm going to just walk this back through to get it back to square one. All right, what I'm going to do now, and again, just jump in with questions if you're having a hard time finding your mute button. I'm going to approve the protocol so we can see what that process looks like. And then we'll look at the meeting agenda, which is something that you will use extensively. And then we'll sort of open it up to whatever you want to dive into. So I'm going to go to IRB action here, and this is where we approve the protocol. You can change the review type at this point. If you think it's exempt, you can change it to exempt. If you think it should go to the full board, you can do so. I'm going to leave it expedited review. I'm going to set the status, so it's going to be approved. You'll see here, this is the date of approval. This is the one that counts. This is the official date of approval. If this was a full board protocol, I would backdate it to the date of the meeting because that's the official approval date of the protocol, even if I'm issuing the approval on a later date. This is something that has to do with our agenda. I'm going to skip over it just for now because it gets a little bit too into the weeds. And here you can see that there's a checkbox to create a continuing review. Under the new regulations, you don't have to do continuing reviews for expedited protocols. I have this instance set up to default to create the continuing review. You can set it up to default to not create the continuing review, but you always have the option to create or not create. If you are going to do a continuing review, you have the option of extending the number of years, because if you don't have to have one, well, you could do one for 2 years if you wanted to. This is the expiration date, the 1-year expiration date, because we are creating a continuing review. This is 364 days from today. That's a variable you set, but that's pretty standard for all IRBs. This is the due date. Mentor calculates the due date as X number of weeks prior to the expiration date for the continuing review. This is 4 weeks. You could be 5 weeks, whatever you want. And the reason why these fields are here and editable is you may want to change it. Maybe you want 6 months instead of a year, right? That's your prerogative. So, all right, this is the waiver of informed consent. I'm going to grant the waiver of informed consent. And I'm going to update the status. At this point, there is some workflow. If you're using our forms, mentors are automatically going to print them to PDF and attach them to the protocol. And in which case, you wouldn't necessarily have a protocol file like I have here. I'm going to copy this to the approved protocol so you can just see there are special file types, approved protocol and approved consent form. Only administrator can put files there. So that way you have a record of what was finally approved. And when you get amendments, it's really handy because then you always know what's current. So you copy the final approved consent form from the amendment to the approved protocol, approved consent form file type, and you have then you always know what's approved. I'm going to, in this case, the function's a little bit more complicated. It's going to PDF this, and it's going to put a stamp on it. So you don't have to have a stamp. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. Mentor converts Word docs to PDF, and this is actually just a temp file. Oh no, it is actually, it really is in Greek. How about that? So this is the stamp. Now you would have your own stamp, you would have your own logo or whatever you want, but Mentor puts in, here in this case, the approval date and the expiration date. So you can place the stamp wherever you want on the page, and whatever. There's about 4 or 5 variables you can use in the stamp. Again, you don't have to have a stamp. And then I'm going to continue, and I'm going to say, okay, I didn't actually update the tracking status as I should have. So I'm going to say it's with a PI temporarily, just so I can show you some changes in the tracking status. This is going to go panels. I'm going to show you what this means in just a couple of minutes. And this is the approval notification. So you can see it's automatically CCing the advisor. Because it's waiver of informed consent, it didn't automatically attach the consent form because it's not expecting one. So I'm going to attach that approved consent form right there, and I'll save that. You can do any other attachments you want. This is again a template that you would customize with your own language. These templates have all sorts of variables in them that get translated when the template loads or when the message is sent. So you can see it's including the approval date, it's got the expiration date, it's got the continuing review due date, etc. Those are all variables that populate. And you can type into this before you send it if you want to. I'm just going to send it out. You can CC other people too if you feel the need. I will send that. And now you can see that the protocol has a date of approval, has an expiration date. And down here, we have the approved consent form in PDF. We have the approved protocol. And down below, even further, we have a continuing review record that's been generated. Mentor's going to remind the PI some weeks prior to this date that they have a continuing review due, and then it will harass them with further emails until they get it done. Those are all parameters that you set. Any questions on that approval process? All right, well, hearing none. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. You know, I was saying that we couldn't find the meeting in GoToMeeting, but here it was. It came up automatically. Anyway, it's already started, so sorry for that. Oh, one thing I want to show you before we go to the agenda, tracking status. Every time I change it, it lays down a timestamp. So you can see how long it, now these are obviously unrealistic times. It doesn't stay with the PI for 1 minute, right? Probably doesn't even stay with them for 1 day. Sometimes it's weeks that they sit on it, right? Reviewers, I'm sure you guys are all diligent and you get them done 2 days later or the next day, right? But, you know, Mentor keeps track of when these things change. And that way, you know, when the PI, you know, somebody complains, gosh, it took you guys 3 months to do my protocol, you can, you know, give them the report and say, look, or you can even make this report available to them on the protocol. And you, like, it was with you, you know, you're the PI, you had it for like 8 weeks. Don't complain about us, right? You know, etc. You can also, there is a report in Mentor that aggregates these data across each of these status values, disaggregates them by review type, so you get one report for exempt, one for expedited, one for full, because you would expect the amounts of time to be different in terms of reviewer time, admin time, etc. All right. Any questions before I go to agenda, meeting agenda? All right, I am going to go, it looks like I did this wrong. Let me just get into Mentor here. I had this set up, but I must have logged out. Let's see, I can be me. We actually manage, there's an IRB that we manage and do reviews for. I'm going to hide the names of the guilty parties here. So just give me a second here to hide last names. And all right, so we're gonna go. Normally we put the link to the agenda right here on the info page. So when you guys as members log in, you land on this page, you click the link, it goes right to the agenda. This is only visible to members and administrators, not to PIs. We don't give them access to the agenda. You can see they've actually got a meeting. It's going on right now. This is, I'm going to go to past meetings. You'll see that they actually have two meeting agenda for each date. One is the full board agenda. The other is just a report of the exemptions and expedited determinations that have been made. This is a very busy IRB. They're doing 500 new protocols a year. And so that's why we've disaggregated these into two different reports. You don't have to do that, but it can be convenient. It means that the full board agenda is really the stuff you've got to read. I'll show you the exempt expedited report in a minute. But now again, this is the admin view. There is an attendance function on the agenda. There is also an attendance poll. And when you send out the attendance poll, the members get a link. And on the page that link leads to, they set how they're going to attend in person, by conference call, etc. This IRB only has a few members, so they generally do this just by a regular email. They don't use the attendance poll. So But it's nice to be able to see that in advance and know whether you're going to have a quorum. There's a meeting header where you can put notes, and then we have the minutes from the previous meeting. The immediate past meeting minutes are always linked here on the next agenda. This is an outline format, so new business, we've got continuing reviews here. They've got protocol deviations. I'm not sure if they have new protocols. No, they don't. Let's look at an agenda that has full, full protocols. I'm pretty sure there are. I was actually present at this meeting, so that's why my name is there. So these are full board protocols. So this is a link to the protocol. So now the purpose of the agenda, besides creating a meeting agenda, is it's one-stop shopping for the members. You can go in here and you can download any of the files. This IRB doesn't use our supplemental forms. They use just the file uploads. But if there were supplemental forms, there'd be a link right here and it would open up the forms. So you should be able to get everything you need right from the agenda. But this is a link to the full protocol, the view protocol page. So if you want to go and look at the full protocol, you can. But usually just the files and the forms are sufficient. This is an administrator note. So Myra wants to highlight something for the members here that, hey, pay attention. We got kids here, we got disabled kids. So, keep that in mind as you're reviewing this. The agenda doubles as the minutes. So you put in your discussion notes right directly into the agenda. There's also the option to use voting attendance if you want. So you can have an attendance for each vote. This IRB doesn't do voting attendance, if I recall. But you can see, we've got each protocol, we got the discussion notes and so forth. Then so the agenda populates automatically based on the categories. So when a continuing review comes in, it automatically gets put onto the agenda. If you don't want it on this agenda, for some reason it's not ready, you can skip it, it goes to the next agenda. With new protocols, you actually have to do a setting on the protocol before it shows up on the agenda. And that's simply because you don't, like full board protocols, they may not be, or even expedited, they may not be ready to be just set on the agenda. There is also a sorted view of this agenda, which takes away the outline structure and just puts them in order, and then you can move them around and you can actually have the agenda in the order in which items are to be discussed. So you could do a couple of continuing reviews, a full board protocol, etc. I don't know what your general practice is with your meetings, so we're pretty flexible in making the agenda work the way you want. When the meeting is approved, then Mentor will generate a PDF of the minutes. This is the PDF. This is the HTML view of the minutes. They're really just a copy of each other. And so you can see how the minutes are handled. We typically most IRBs set it up to have the title, the PI's name, and the discussion notes. Title, PI's name, discussion notes. You can show all the files if you want. It's usually not done on the minutes. And as I said, this gets printed to PDF automatically when the meeting is approved at the next meeting, hopefully. So most of you, the members, this is the place that you're going to prepare for a meeting. So you're going to be either assigned as a reviewer, in which you're going to be looking at a protocol before it gets to a meeting, or you're going to be looking at the agenda. I did promise to show you what the exempt expedited report looks like. It's another meeting agenda, but you can see here we have everything truncated. That's what the little chevron does. So if you want to look at a protocol, just click the chevron and it will show you what's there. But the IRB under the regulations has a responsibility to report to the members all of the exempt and expedited determinations it's made since the last meeting. And so that's what this is doing. I'm suspicious of whether the members actually read this, but it's available, and that's the due diligence of the IRB. As you can see, this is a really busy IRB. They got 36 expedited reviews, so it's a lot of work going on here. So, questions on the agenda or just general questions? That's what I normally cover in a demo of this sort, but I'm happy to drill down on anything else that you want to look at.
While the rest of the board is thinking about questions, can I just ask a quick question about that minimal risk review report that you were just showing? Is that something that the members would have access to through the agenda? Or is that set up as a separate, I mean, how would they access that?
This is a meeting agenda, and so they would just go to agenda and they would just click on the link for the date for that particular date. I mean, this is for today's meeting, right? There are two agenda, right? And so hopefully the members go in here and they look at this. Now there's only, I'm suspicious why there's only 2 items here. That doesn't seem right to me. So I have to talk to Myra about that. It may be that there's just the end of the term and nothing got, nobody was submitting new items. I don't know. But it is a real agenda. It's just that there's 2 agenda and we use, what you noticed before when I was approving the protocol, it asked me what panel. We use our panels function, which is a way to have actually 2 different groups of members doing different meetings, alternating weeks, that sort of thing. But we can use it to generate this report. And so it really is just another meeting agenda, but it serves as a report and it's accessible to the members at any time. And the nice thing about the agenda, because it's date sensitive, it only includes what's new since the last meeting, right? And so you don't, there's, this just runs on autopilot. Nobody has to go to this agenda to make this happen. It happens all by itself, so it makes it easy. We do not have, like the link that we sent, I showed you for the reviewer and the faculty advisor. We do not have a link like that for the meeting agenda. There is just way too much going on in this agenda to make it available. It's also making multiple protocols available in a less secure environment is probably not a good idea. I mean, any link that we would generate for that would still be valid for 4 weeks, but we'd rather keep that to just one protocol. So you do have to log into Mentor to get to the agenda. There's also a number of functions here, some of which I didn't go over here that are associated with the agenda. So there isn't a get an email, click a link, open up the agenda. You actually have to log in. So,
thank you.
Are there already training programs, training protocols of some kind built into the system, or is it a bit, does each IRB customize it to the degree that you don't really have a standard training set of procedures?
Yeah, the latter. Mentor is so customizable that every IRB is different, and any training, video, we've done some that we do aren't going to be applicable to you. So, what we normally do is once we've done the configuration, so that's usually, that would be with Laura, might be with the chair, depending on how into the weeds the chair wants to get. Once we've done that, we got things set up. Then, Laura, you guys might do some test protocols to get used to the system. And then we would do a training for the members to again, because by the time, we get to that point, it could be September, it could be August, I don't know, right? I don't know what the timeline is. We'll do a training for the members on, okay, when you're assigned as a reviewer, here's what's going to happen. Here's the email, here's the link, here's what you can do. We'll record that, and then we'll give you that recording. We can do the same for PIs. You could send out an announcement. We'll do a webinar for as many PIs as want to sign up. We'll record it. And so then that way your people are going to see what they would expect to, what they're going to get, rather than something that is a generic instance of Mentor.
This is Laura. I think my sense is it will be a much more streamlined system once it's set up, and it makes sense for the Saybrook IRB. And so I think training at that time, I think it'll make a lot more sense.
Yeah, the setup configuration, it's all done within Mentor. There's nothing we have to do, programming to set it up, unless you have requests that, we don't do, and we do some customization for our clients. But it is a good 5 or 6 90-minute go-to meetings with the administrator, at least with Laura, to go through all of the config. I mean, all of this stuff is set up. And, there are so many settings. How do reviewers, how does the system behave for reviewers? What are the roles? What can they do? What are the settings? Just there's, and we go through this step by step. Every single switch in the system will explain what it does, how you want to have it configured. It can be changed anytime. If you decide to change your practices, then you usually, ask me, how do we change this? And we'll help you out. But there's a lot of configuration here. But it's also a good way to educate particularly the administrator about what Mentor can do. So you have some ideas about what it can do, and that gives you some ideas about, well, we could change our practices this way because it will support that. It may, give you some ideas that you hadn't thought of. And it also means that the administrator has some idea how to make these changes if they want to make changes on their own. So.
And Kurt, can you tell us where, I thought if I remember correctly, there was a way to embed some support material and guidance as part of the system to help our kind of newer researchers with the process. Remind me where we would put guidance and support. I forgot.
So I mean, the initial obvious place would be, to give them documents up front, right? That will give them some guidance. We do have a project that's not yet done. It's actually not started, but will allow you to put tooltips on all of these labels. So you can put your own text on them to explain them. We'll probably, and the reason why it's a rather large project is we will write the initial default text and then you can customize it. The pre-protocol survey does some guidance for them as well. We actually get very few requests for support from PIs. What they have to do is fairly straightforward. From members, we get a few of those, but there are of course much fewer members than there are PIs. It's 98% of what we do is with the administrator, right? Because the administrator has to really learn the system, and that takes time.
Could we link from that front info page to, if we have an IRB website that has some additional support materials?
You can put any link you want. Yeah, you can put any link you want. You can also, with the forms. So if I go to one of these forms I was showing you, so the protocol outline. So you can put links into these questions. You can put explanations that are tooltips on the question. So if I put text in here, there's a little mouse over that you can get more text so that you don't clutter up the form with your explanatory text. But all they have to do is mouse over and they see that text. So you can give them a lot of guidance, particularly in these places where it's probably more critical.
That's what I was remembering. Thank you for that. Was exactly. I thought there was a mechanism for that. Thanks.
What you're saying is we could embed Kerwin and Laura's home phone numbers in here, and save a lot of time for the rest of us.
Stop.
Yeah,
I don't think so. No.
Want to pick on, right? That's why we limit administrators to being able to make changes and not members. I trust Laura. I don't know about the rest of you, but I trust Laura to be appropriate.
I'm gonna encourage everyone to. This will be a collaboration. We'll participate together. No, but does anyone else have any questions at this time? I will invite all of the board members. I'm working with Bob Schmidt to set up another meeting with members of the Faculty Senate and some of our all of our academic program chairs that would kind of focus more on the submission kind of piece and some of the review piece, but not into the detail the agenda and all of that we went through today. And of course, you all are invited to come to that as well. I just thought it would be easier if we had a more technical meeting on some of the back end stuff today. Do you all have any other questions? Chris,
See if they had their video on, we could see if they were actually paying attention or not.
Christopher, I don't mean to call you out, but I know you have some experience with different IRB review systems, as did I before seeing this, and I'm just curious about your thoughts.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, no, it looks really great, and I think that one question about returning it to the chair to review the revisions before it comes back to IRB, I think that would be one thing. And I think, Kurt, you mentioned that it could be coded into it. So, or we'll just develop some other process. But I think that was the only thing, because I think the chair should see it and should sign off on the revisions.
By chair, you mean the faculty, the dissertation chair?
The dissertation chair, yeah.
Okay. I mean, we could certainly look at enabling a workflow for that would be more systematic than simply, I mean, they are copied on the revisions requested. We could probably just undo their approval of it when revisions are requested, and then that would force them to redo it. So that would be probably relatively simple to program. So, and that's something that that kind of thing we're happy to do. We don't charge for the pages because they're things that other people can use, other clients can use if they want. So.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and otherwise it seems very intuitive, and it has several different options and places and guided interfaces for the roles, different roles. So that's really great. So we're not constantly seeing everything all the time, which is very helpful.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Systems, yeah, exactly. So thank you. I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
And thanks, Laura. Yeah, I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all so much. Does anyone else have any questions right now, or Kurt, is there anything else that you would need to fill us in? And otherwise, I'll touch back with you to get the other meeting set on our calendars.
Yeah, just touch back with me. I've gone on here for a pretty long time, so I mean, I can do this all day as long as my voice holds out. So, but I don't want to take you all too far into the weeds. We're gonna do that with Laura. So.
Thank you so much. I think this is really helpful. I think the visual helps. And could you send us the link to the recording so we can send to a couple members that had to leave or couldn't attend today?
Yes, I will. It will take an hour or so for GoToMeeting to
sure.
And then I'll send you the link.
Thanks so much. And thank you all for taking the time to look at this with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Okay, talk to you later. Thanks, Kurt. Bye-bye. Bye, you all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.